and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I'm super excited to introduce today's special guest, Owen. Owen and I have been friends for a few years, and he actually records this podcast. So it's really exciting to get him to come on as a guest to tell his story as someone who's been diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. But Owen has over a decade of experience in wellness, and you're really going to get to hear some of his passions, some of his experience. He has a podcast, he has a coaching business, and he puts out so much great content and information online. I can't wait for you to hear more about a life-threatening situation he survived and what his diagnosis of ADHD has done for him and how he's been able to help so many other people. Well, I'm so excited for our chat today. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me on. We've known each other a long time and we've done a lot of podcasts together. So this is going to be a bit weird, I think, for me to be a guest on an iteration of one of your shows. Can't wait.
Yes, because I've been a guest on your show and we had a group podcast together, which was wonderful. But I'm really excited to actually make you be a guest on my show because we get more of your amazing story and all the things that you've been through and discovered in life and how you can help other people. So, I'm going to pass it to you, let you introduce yourself to our audience, and we'll jump in.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's going to be weird because you know who I am, but for the good of the audience, my name's Owen. I live in Bath in the UK, and essentially today, your show's all about Unbreakable Hope. So I thought, what could I talk about in regards to sort of overcoming things, I suppose, and being proud of myself and meeting that with compassion. So yeah, I'll be talking about my ADHD diagnosis today, what that meant to me at the age of 41, and then nearly dying about 9 years ago now, which will probably be appropriate to how this journey all unfolded from the moment I nearly died through to the ADHD diagnosis and today. So I'm an ADHD coach now. I've been a wellbeing coach prior to that, did massage for 10 years, personal training before that. So I've always been in and around wellbeing for the last 15 years. And because of my neurodivergence diagnosis, I thought it'd be really amazing to help fellow NDers, as I call them, which I've done. I've just launched my business. I've got clients now. It's been an absolutely amazing journey. I've had a podcast for a year all about ADHD, autism, ADHD as well. And that's been absolutely fascinating. But before that, as you know, you were on my shows before and you were a co-host on some of them. So talking about trauma for years, self-awareness, men's health. I've interviewed about 600 people. So been doing this a long time. So it's nice today to be able to, you're the first person actually I've been able to talk to like this, to talk about the ADHD part. I've never really told it as a guest. I've only ever told it on my own show, hosting that. So I want to thank you for that one. But that's going to be in a nutshell at the moment. Coaching, podcasting, all to do with neurodivergence. I'm full-time as well in another job. I've got a family and all the usual stuff. So yeah, life's 100 miles an hour right now.
I love it. I think that's something that we've always been able to connect on is wearing the many of hats and wanting to improve the lives of other people. And it's so cool that you've been in the wellness space for so long. And also I did not know this is the first time that you're going to be talking about your journey. So I'm feeling really honored and special for that. I definitely want to start. So I know you've mentioned a few times, but I don't think I've even really got the full story myself, is your near-death experience. So maybe like what was life kind of like before that? And then what happened in that experience?
Yeah, thank you. I haven't talked about it for a while, so it's going to be interesting to see what I recall and what I feel is appropriate now, especially with neurodivergence as well. Because some of my theories behind what happened were informed not through a neurodivergent lens. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I can see how that probably played a part actually. So essentially around that time, I was running my own business in massage therapy. I was going pretty well. I worked part-time in the theatre, so I was working on the bar in the evening, so I had time to do my work in the day. And I was a massage therapist at the theatre as well. So I was looking after the cast, the crew, looking after all the shows. I mean, life was pretty cool, I was still struggling a lot with what I called then anxiety. I really struggled with stress. I had very low tolerance to stress. And I had quite hyperfixated, slightly addictive personality when it came to the things that I was into. So then I was doing half marathons every other week, traveling around the UK and doing just a cheeky 10-mile run on my day off. That's how fit I was. Couldn't believe it. I had a six pack and everything. Incredible times. But yeah, life was pretty good. I was single at the time. I was living with a roommate then. And actually, it's probably the happiest I think I'd ever been until today. So, things were going well, but there's definitely stuff behind the scenes that weren't quite right. But I just woke up one day just in this most unbelievable searing pain. Yeah, I'm trying to remember it all now in more vivid detail, but just like I was being stabbed in the stomach. It was horrible. My friend was round. We were getting ready for a cinema night. Just know that we had a movie podcast together. But I used to host cinema nights. I had all my mates round. We had bean bags and a massive telly and have snacks. So we were prepping for that, making bean bags, getting balls, putting them in sewing it all up and everything. I was like, I don't feel too good. I just thought it was my stomach cramps. Maybe I just had something bad to eat, but it just got worse and worse over those few hours. And yeah, I can't explain how painful it was. So I ended up a couple of hours later, I was lying on the bathroom floor, just like in a fetal position. And by then I'd vomited so much that it was just pure water at that point. I was just vomiting water. My whole stomach was clearing out. And I was sweating and I was cold, but I had hot flashes at the same time. Very, very strange. And in the end, because I was like, no, no, I'm fine. Because this is what I used to be like. No, no, I'm fine. Don't know if it's a male thing or whatever. And I hate hospitals. I hate faff. I hate things being just fiddly and awkward. I don't want to cause a scene. I always used to be like that. Big people pleaser. So I'm fine. My partner's like, we are going to the hospital. So she dragged me into the car. And I just remember that trip looking out the window in my head, like on the bottom of the window, just looking out, seeing the trees going past, and just like in so much pain, like I was being stabbed in the stomach repeatedly, horrendous times. I was sort of limping into the hospital and all that kind of thing. And they kind of had to rush me straight in. I had to wait a little bit of time because obviously in the UK, it's a free health service. We're very grateful for that. But it does mean you are hanging around for a very long time, no matter how serious things can be. You're like, bloody hell, they're making you last like 4 hours, wait 4 hours. That's for another podcast. But yeah, they got me in for tests and they did like an X-ray on my stomach and things like that, just seeing what was going on. And they gave me some painkillers, so that eased it a little bit. And then they kind of said, we can't see anything on the X-ray. So we're not sure what this is. This was mistake number one by them. So they said, keep you up in overnight. But every time I tried to eat anything, I just vomit straight back up. But again, they weren't sure. So they sent me home. Brilliant. So they sent me home. You're going to realize why was such a terrible thing to have done. So they sent me home, and that has to be the work. That following 6 days just has to be the worst 6 days of my life, I think. I was in so much pain, just stomach cramps again, stabbing pains, and then it would get better for a bit. And then I started to just see the pattern. So I was like, okay, so I eat, I vomit within about 5 to 6 minutes from that, just comes straight back up. So it's all gone. And then the pain goes away. Then I was like, oh, okay, so there's a problem here, some sort of weird IBS thing, and it's only kicking in when I eat. Then I'm fine for a few hours. Then I'm trying to eat again. Then it would happen again. This went on for 6 days. I hadn't eaten any proper food for 6 days. Well, I didn't know that. I thought at least some of it was going in, right? And obviously, I hadn't gone to the toilet the whole time because what is there to get rid of? Water seemed to be okay. But again, oh, fine. I'm sure this will be okay in a few days. As I was just slowly wasting away. I'm joking. It's not funny, really. But it got to the sixth day, and people I skinny in the face. You could see my cheekbones and stuff like that. Because obviously my body had just had no nutrients for 6 days. And obviously we can last a long time without food. We know that water is the most important thing. But I'd actually lost weight in that 6 days because I hadn't eaten anything that whole time. So it got to a point where it was just too much. I went back into hospital, had parents either side of me, and I was sort of, crawling in, so to speak. Then obviously they rushed me straight to a room. They CT scanned me, which is what they should have done the first time. X-ray was never going to show what had happened to me. A CT scan would have.
Mm.
So I'm sure if they could, they would say sorry. So they put me in for a CT scan, and then that's where they saw in my stomach there was this black mass there, where that part of my intestines had started to die off. Because what had happened essentially is at some point, part of my intestines had been dragged into another part. So it was like periscoped in. So it's kind of, like you get those periscope look out into the distance and they open up, a bit like that. So part of it had been dragged in. So complete blockage. And what had happened is because that blocked, no food could get through. So it was going to my stomach and the intestines, it was blocked off. So it was like, no, no. And it just comes straight back up. So what had happened is my intestines started to die off. So that part got so tangled that I guess my body was protecting itself, wasn't it? So it started to die off. So that's why it's all gone funny and black and weird, apparently, in surgery when they told me. So at that point, they knew obviously I was going to die very quickly if they didn't rush me to surgery. So I think it was like a few hours, and they took me down. I think it was like really late at night, maybe midnight or something. So they took me straight down. But I just, I had that movie moment, I was lying on the bed, and you see all the lights on the ceiling flashing by. My dad was next to me. I was this close to saying bye to my dad. Like, yeah, thanks, Dad. Thanks for everything. Because I thought I wasn't going to come back from this because they didn't really know what it was fully. So I was going for surgery, but, they sedate you and then they, someone makes a joke in there to make you feel better. And yeah, the lights go out, don't they? But I honestly, I feel like I've definitely processed it because I'm not getting any emotional stuff in my body talking about this, which I'm really excited about. So thank you, Jess. I clearly have processed this. There's no trauma there, which is great. But yeah, I thought that was it for me. I thought I was done. So I obviously had that beautiful moment when I wake up, open my eyes, go, holy shit, I'm still here. And where am I? Obviously, I'm in a room with loads of other people post surgery. And yeah, it was quite an emotional moment, but it was, the next 4 or 5 days that were the most powerful because they couldn't put me on food straight away. I had to have just liquid foods and things like that. And I always remember the first meal I had was a tomato soup. No bread, can't have bread yet, but I had a tomato soup all sat up in bed. I got a photo of it, and I look so gaunt. It's so weird. It looks really different, but yeah, it was like the greatest meal of my life. Just tomato soup, greatest meal ever, because I got to taste proper food again properly. And then it was just all about obviously rehabbing my stomach back to health. But essentially, they had to, you know, listen with care. Trigger warning, guys. Maybe skip this next few seconds. But they had to take my intestines out, essentially, cut off all the dead stuff, and then resew it. So that's pretty cool, right? I've got less intestines than the average human,
Mm.
which I'm really excited about. Well, average 6'2" human, anyway. So that's my claim to fame. I have less intestines. And you think I would be really worried about my gut, wouldn't you, 8 years on? But I still feel like I should be eating a lot better. um, but that is essentially the story, really. And obviously, I rehab. There's stuff that happened after that, which sort of shaped my life going forward. But yeah, it was an intense moment. I'm hoping this is my big thing. Everyone, we all tend to have like a big scare, don't we, in our lifetime? And I'm hoping this is my only one. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it was a big moment. It shaped who I am. But yeah, that was it, really. That was the the night I nearly died. But yeah, yay, no emotional trauma. That's so good. I discovered that today.
That's that is so wild. It's crazy how, like you said, like everyone we kind of go through these pivotal parts in our life, and I say like there's certain parts in our life where they were so hard that we didn't think we were going to make it through, but then we made it through. So we can reflect back to those parts sometimes, be like, oh, I made it through that. Like I can make it through this. And I think a lot of that is being a caregiver to my husband with brain cancer, where I'm like, we made it through 9 days in the ICU. If I ever reach another point in my life where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, like this tops that, no, I'm good. I'm good. So I'm sure that's kind of like what you're saying. Like I've done my one thing, right? I had my near-death experience, and I'm sure that also helps shape some of the work you're doing in wellness as well, because you didn't know how much you needed to advocate for yourself the first time, like, oh, you got an x-ray. Oh, okay. And I think that's what a lot of us do, right? It's like, oh, I guess I'm good and it'll just pass, or it's just a moment. And 6 days, holy smokes, 6 days of sucking that up, and then finally basically being drugged into the hospital to say, no, something's really, really, really wrong. That's that's wild. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have had similar experiences where we put a lot of, I would say, like faith and trust, or maybe sometimes pressure on our healthcare systems, and that we forget that they're humans too. So I'm glad you went back to get more treatment. I'm not sure there's really a choice if you're like, I mean, obviously you had to get drugged back in, but I think a lot of people get discouraged if they go to one doctor or one hospital, or one person says this one thing, and then being able to go and still go back to a doctor and have somebody else, or if there's still a concern, to go back and hopefully not stick with it. Because there's people, I'm sure, that have other medical conditions that maybe weren't coming out as intensely as yours.
Yeah.
You 6 days, you're like, you're literally dying because you're not having any food, and everyone around you is saying, you've got to go back. Like this isn't okay. That maybe there's other situations where people, oh, I went to a doctor, they said it was fine, and they're still sucking it up, that it's okay to still go back and seek another opinion, or go get reevaluated or reassessed if something's not getting better. I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people, they just go once and then they go off of whatever was decided, and then that's it. And then it's wild. It's so wild. Like, I just think of like how much we've been through in medical, and if had we not pushed back sometimes on some things, and these systems are just overloaded, right, on a regular basis. Like you said, 4 hours, hey, look, thank God for the free healthcare. And then for us, like, thank God that we have the insurances that we do, but also knowing, like, gosh, there's so many other factors that play into getting help, which I think that ties back into all the work you've done in the wellness space, right? Is there's a lot of work that we could be doing for ourselves and helping other people to be able to have a wealthy, healthy life, right? The different form of wealth. Some people think wealth is money, but the wealth within our health. And is that kind of journey one of the things that push you more towards the wellness lifestyle, and being more well in your health outside of hospitals and doctors?
I don't know really. It's been interesting. I kind of been into well-being since I was a teenager. I think I've really struggled when I was a kid, just in social situations, making friends, and on reflection, I was clearly ADHD. And if you look at my school reports, because I had to pull those out to get my for my assessment, I was like, oh Jesus Christ! The way they were talking about little Owen, I was like, oh, okay, quite like that now actually. So that was quite interesting, but. Yeah, as a kid, I used to write poetry. So when I was 15, 16, 17, because I really didn't know how to talk about my emotions to people. But I was very introspective, I was always exploring, what does this mean? I've always been like that. What does the brain do? And since I was very young, so I used to write poetry about life experience. And it's really good stuff. I read back at it now. And my mum wanted to get it published when I got to 18, 19, which was really sweet. Didn't quite make it, to publish them as, sort of like a biography, I guess, but in poetry form at a young age. So I'd written a lot of poetry to express things. And even then I could see I was so fascinated by the human experience that it's kind of followed me my whole life. And they say we often have a key passion. I think those people from start of their life to the end, as you get into things, I think we tend to have a couple of things, we hyperfixate on, that we really enjoy and are always around us. And mine's certainly been psychology, human experience, how the brain works, how the body works, the nervous system. And to this day, I still love it, which is why I'm always in the space. I try and walk away. I try and walk away from well-being. Close down businesses. I go, no, I'm just going to get a normal job. Stop trying to grow a business with clientele. But it keeps sucking me back in. So I'm just going to let my authenticity grow now, I think, and stay in it. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think me as a person has always been fascinated this whole time, from teenage to 42 years old. So I don't know. I think it makes life interesting, I love people watching, and seeing what that's all about. I love watching reality shows where it's about a group of people. I love it. Love all that stuff. So yeah, have I answered your question? I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's great sometimes, like, really embracing the part of like who we were. I recently discovered, like I say, like I recently made the connection, I guess, not discovered, obviously. But I recently made the connection as a researcher. So that's what I do as like a profession is, I research a lot of stuff. So I realized as a kid, though, I was big into research, big into knowledge. Like, I wanted to know like why and how and where do we come to this? How do we get this policy? Like what made these things? And I remember I've told some people I've been a vegetarian since I was 7. So my first essay in school was an essay on animal testing toothpaste with rabbits. And I remember putting in all this research for that moment. And I was 7. Like what? So I made that connection recently. Like, oh my gosh, I've always loved research and loving knowledge and being able to share that knowledge with other people. So I can tell, like, obviously, like I've known you now for gosh, a few years, and knowing how passionate you've been about wellness and health in that space. And it's cool to say, like, it's always been with you. And I love that it keeps coming back. And obviously it keeps coming back, like in your life with your recent diagnosis, right? Now you have a bit more understanding. You said you had to drag out some of your old test scores and you're like, oh, yikes. So what was that process like? Because I think that's one thing a lot of people have so many misconceptions about ADHD and how do you get diagnosed. And I know in America, a big thing is that people want to throw ADHD and diagnose people right off the bat. And it's like, well, there's actually a process, right? And you had to go through that and you went through it at an adult age. So what does that look like? How has it changed your life? And maybe how do you think it would have been different if you would have been able to know sooner, maybe in youth?
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting question because this is the kind of questions I obviously ask on my show. Because I always interview people with ADHD and autism and dyspraxia and dyslexia. And these kind of questions what I asked because I find it absolutely fascinating now. Literally a friend of mine in the schoolyard today, she comes up to me and she goes, "Oh my God, Owen, guess what?" I was like, "What?" She goes, "I got my autism assessment." I was like, "What?" And like, so it's just happening all around me all the time. This is the time, 2025. It's since sorry, the mid, yeah, 2005, 2004 is kind of when it started to ramp up. It's only probably the last 6, 7 years, I think, where we've really seen this spike. Now that's good. That's good, but also seems to be a political issue for people who are like, "Ugh, it's just ADHD is not a thing." And too many people are saying they've got it because they're trying to get off work and they're trying to use it as an excuse. And it's ridiculous. People don't have this. Why are so many people having it now? And the most important thing to say about that is the reason there's a rise is because we are finally understanding it. There are the generation before us, my mum and dad's generation, there were so many people with neurodivergence or different neurotypes who have had to go through just these really rough lives because they've not understood how their brain works or how their nervous system works. I think that's pretty heartbreaking. The diagnosis levels still would have been the same in the 80s, 70s and 80s if we were actually researching it, studying the brain. So we are at the precipice of this, and that's why there's so many diagnoses now because they're saying it's 1 in 5 people are going to have on some level on that spectrum of different neurotypes. We thought it was like 1, 2, 3 in 100. It's 1 in 5. And we're seeing that with the schools now, with the kids coming through the school system, that's the case. So politically aside, because people are going to have opinions on it, obviously I'm a big advocate for it being the real deal, but it actually can help a lot of people understand why life's ended up the way it has or why they interact with life in a certain way. And you don't need to use it as an excuse to say, oh, I've got this, so I can't do this. But what it does do is it explains things. Explanation is really powerful. It gives us a sense of self-awareness. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation to explain what happens. But we do have the responsibility and the ownership to make sure that we take care of ourselves in the best way we can with that neurotype so we can have the best life we can as well and not use it as an excuse to behave badly or do this or do that and say, oh, sorry, it's just my ADHD. So it's really important to say that is that we can really start to honor our truth and shape a life that allows us to thrive in our own beautiful way. So I think that's the key thing. What it does is it gives you information that you can use now to shape a life yourself. And when I'm doing coaching with my clients, that's what it's all about, is honoring who you are and your neurotype, your struggles, things you do well in. Just honor it. It's all about honoring. It's so beautiful, using all that compassion, which is what I did since my diagnosis. have my little cry when you you find out your truth. You're like, you go through grief. You're like, oh my God, all the things I could have done. No wonder I am where I am now. You can use all that negative thought does come up. A lot of people have said that, but then that's passes a little bit. And what I really encourage my clients to do and people on my podcast, I ask them the question, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of achieving despite a neurodivergent brain potentially getting in the way of that? Commonly known to be getting in the way of that. And I love hearing people's answers. I did this. I'm so proud I did this. And it's so beautiful because, you know, ADHD can be labeled as lazy. We are some of the hardest working people out there because we have to go that little bit harder to pull off normal societal expectations. We have to push even harder to do it. People don't get that, and I think we're the opposite of lazy in that way. We have to push harder. So I'll leave that there just in case you have any questions about it. Obviously, you've been on my show and we were looking at sort of the things that can happen because of that, whether it be, like we said, how many people are in the forces, how that looks politically, and also suicide as well. We talked a little bit about that. And the mental health, because there's lots of core mobilities that come with this. So people with ADHD are much more likely to have anxiety and depression. And, that inner critic, self-criticism part of us is more prevalent as well. So there's all these comorbidities that come with it. Burnout can be a lot higher in this community, neurodivergence as well. Chronic fatigue can be more common. So the neurotypical world, in inverted commas, isn't really set out for a lot of neurodivergent brains, really. And I think that's the next step, I think, is how can we all meet in the middle somehow? Neurotypicals, neurodivergence, build a world where we all get to flourish. So yeah, that's kind of how I've interacted with it and seeing that in my community as well.
I think that's great. And I know since we've talked about it, there's a research magazine that I'm constantly finding in different topics. And there was one on ADHD and I was like, I have to get this and I have to read it all so I can learn more, and Owen and I can swap stories about this. But I think your example of it is so beautiful. The diagnosis being, it makes me think of another way to put it for people who haven't had the diagnosis or don't know somebody. And I think of an injury, right? When you just have a basic injury and you get a diagnosis, it's like that validation, like, oh, like, okay, great. Now what do I do with this? So your options, like you go to PT, you rehab, you have to do your stretches, you have to, warm up. So for myself, I've had 9 surgeries. So before I work out, I have to care for my body in a different way. I have to do a lot more when I am working out, physically caring for my body to be able to continue my day and move my body for the next 5, 10, 20 years. So I loved how when you put that, that's what was making me think is like another perspective. I think everyone can at least relate to having some form of physical injury at some point, or knowing somebody who's had a surgery and had to go through that recovery. It's the same thing. And learning what your diagnosis is, grieving the life that you could have had, right? I've shared some stuff about grief looks very different. So that's a great point you brought up too, is oh, wow, now that I have this, all this makes more sense. My life could have looked different, but then embracing where you're at and learning those skills on how to move forward and be able to live with the diagnosis, but also enhance your life. Now knowing this powerful information, you can tailor it to how you function and how you do different things. And I think even with that, when you bring up the very, very valuable, like the social climate around the diagnoses that we get of any kind of neurodivergence, right? If people don't understand, they fear what they don't understand, and they misjudge what they don't understand. And I think that as time goes on, I remember a little bit from the magazine. I haven't fully read it all the way, but there's a little bit where it talked about the history of the diagnosis and how it was like super generic. And then now there's these different categories. And now a lot of people know the term like on a spectrum is there's different ranges of this, that people still have it kind of stuck in their heads that it's this one way or no way. And I hate when there are people who think that, they're just saying this, it's being overdiagnosed, they're just using it as an excuse. And I really hope we can change that in society by having more conversations. Obviously, your amazing podcast that's bringing on people to talk about these real life examples of what they've gone through and how they've been able to overcome it in the end. And you being a coach just having all of your experience in wellness, but also having your experience with your own diagnosis and how it's affected and changed your own life, right? That makes a huge difference too.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it's something you talked about there about the diagnostic process. So look, it's all DSM based, like a lot of the stuff really. So it's a certain amount of criteria and you get a score, which I've never really understood because that's not how humans work. We don't get rated to determine who we are. But it's the best thing we could do, I guess, because it needs to be fair for everybody. But it's all based on scores, so there's only so much you can do. But the good thing about diagnoses like that is they'll look at school reports. They'll ask, say, your parents from when you were a kid. They'll get them to fill out forms. They'll get a loved one, in modern day, an adult loved one, to fill out forms. I'm saying all this because if you're getting a diagnosis, make sure this stuff's happening because then you're going to be much more secure in knowing it's a legit, assessment service you're getting. Really important. Other people are filling out forms. Now, they can work for you and against you because parents may go, no, no, because, they may feel guilty that they didn't know this. So they'll be like, no, you were fine. You were fine as a child. And that can kind of go against you. So bear that in mind. Anywho, says that. But there's something really important to say because I realize, we're talking about this, but a lot of people are, what is it? What makes me ADHD? But what I would say for anybody that's unsure, because I had some pushback, you can't be. You did this business, you did that, and you stuck to this, and you're not running around like a wild boy in the classroom. And it's like, no, 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 you can have an overactive mind. So it happens especially more for women that it's the hyperactivity is in the mind. It's not outwardly. All right, causes rumination and worry and hyperfixing on things. It's an intention issue at times as well. But putting all of that cheesy stuff aside, I like to think about it as a regulatory issue. If you want to really explain it to somebody that doesn't get it and keep it really simple, think about all your systems, your brain, your body, your nervous system, your gut. They all work in a certain way. A lot of it's autonomic, isn't it? It happens automatically. It's a system, it's a process, it does its thing, it regulates itself. You get hot, your body helps you with that, it makes you sweat. You get cold, it might get you to shake, so you get warmer. Our body is wired to do that. Our brain is wired to look out for danger, obviously, and to make sense of that. And we can use our own subconscious, or our own conscious mind actually, to figure out what that is. So imagine if those things are out of whack. That is essentially, when you think about it, what neurodivergence is, a regulatory dysregulation. So our ability to regulate our focus is a regulatory system. We can't regulate our focus and it goes all over the place. And then we have to make sure we catch it and work with that. So yeah, let me know, Jesse, that you think that makes sense. It's like, think about all the different processes and imagine if they didn't function properly. That's neurodivergence, and that's why life can be quite difficult because you're constantly having to regulate yourself when your body's just doing whatever the hell it wants because it hasn't got the right releases of certain chemicals at the right time. Your dopamine levels are low and your brain doesn't know how to create more dopamine to get you to be able to, because without dopamine you ain't doing anything. Dopamine isn't just about happiness, it's about getting shit done. Dopamine is the thing that gets you to send the email. That's why so many people can endings can go flat because they don't have the dopamine to do something. So that happens too. But does that make sense? Regulatory, I think that's a really nice way to think about it because then that covers everything. Brain, nervous system, gut, all gets covered.
It also makes me think of cars. So we have automatics and we have standards or stick shifts. And I remember I learned on a stick shift. My dad had neck surgery, so he couldn't turn very well. So I was, I don't know, gosh, I want to say I was like 13 or something. So he was teaching me how to drive and to do the stick shift because he couldn't really look down. And he was like, oh, you got like, you do it for me, help me out here. And I remember getting into the Marine Corps and everyone thought like it's not typical one for a lot of people to know how to drive a standard or a stick shift here. And especially it's not very common for females. So I go in the Marine Corps and I'm like, oh no, I know how to drive one. And I remember my staff sergeant, he had a stick shift. So we're all out to dinner and he needed a DD. So then of course everyone dimes me out and they're like, oh, Hammock, she knows how to drive a stick shift. And I was like, oh man, okay, now I gotta be someone's DD. But as you're saying, like that regulatory piece, right? It's like stick shift, okay, you gotta press the clutch, then you gotta shift. But there was something a little off with his car. And if it didn't quite click just right, the whole car would stall. And you'd have to get out of the car, pop the hood, and jumpstart the car. So as you're explaining all this, maybe it's like a mechanical term, so that might resonate with a
Yeah.
lot of men. I think of like the body, like I think of like an actual car and the engine functioning. Like your brain is the engine that's got to function to move forward, but all these other pieces are affected if something's off just a little bit. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously a lot of the research I'm doing behavioral health and neuroscience related to, I think it's really fascinating. But for people who never heard of this before, maybe the people who are on the skeptic scale, I guess, of neurodivergencies, especially with ADHD diagnoses, that I'm hoping that they're hearing and they're learning something from what we're talking about right now, because I think it is important. I'm sure with a lot of the groups that you're involved with, because you speak so openly about wellness and your journey with wellness and improving lives, that you probably didn't get a whole lot of pushback within your circle of friends. But as far as society and getting this diagnosis at an adult age, what does that look like? And obviously, you're bringing a lot of your guest experience, right? We're getting a little summary of all these amazing guests that you've been able to have on, that some have had similar experiences, is getting diagnoses later in life as an adult and then moving forward with that.
Yeah, thank you. I know, appreciate we talk about the science a lot, and this is Unbreakable Hope. We're talking about the personal impact of these
Wow.
things. But yeah, and I'm really glad we got to cover that. And, people want to find out more about the finer details of this experience. Then I guess my podcast or other podcasts out there can help you do that. But yeah, from like a personal perspective and stuff, and I'm sure a lot of NDers will be reflective in this as well, is that you just feel like one of my biggest issues this whole time has been self-worth for me. I just always felt like, why can't I just stick to things? Why can't I just stay in jobs? This can be quite common for ND. It's hard to stay in jobs because you either get insanely bored and you can't tolerate that boredom in it, or it's too much and it's too overstimulating. You find it too hard because it just really dysregulates you because it just Yes, because a lot of time with ADHD, there is some autism crossover as well. So it can be sensory as well, noise, light, sound, and that can cross over as well. But for me personally, self-worth was the thing. It's like, I don't understand why I can't make any of my businesses last long enough. And why do I give up? Why do I just completely crash and burn and then walk away and I have to come back and set it all up again? And it's just really rough. You can't, I've got a family. It's really hard to support them. My partner's neurodivergent as well, but more on the autism side. So it's hard for her to sustain work and, full-time work. And then I can't earn enough money because I find higher positions too stressful. I can't regulate the anxiety and overstimulation of that. So we don't earn enough, so it has a huge impact. It has a huge impact on your family. And you just feel a bit worthless. You feel like, oh, am I ever going to be good enough? Am I ever going to achieve a life which gives everything I need for me and the people around me? So, it's no joke. It can be really hard. And so many of neurodivergent people end up, addicts or, as we talked about suicide, it's really sad. And it just gets unbearable, to be honest, Jess. Sometimes it can be, back in the day when I didn't know any of this, it's so unbelievably unbearable to be in your own body. You're so overstimulated that your body's just like shaking. You just want to it's horrible because you're not able to regulate your emotions properly. And, we feel things much more intensely. Our emotions don't regulate properly. So when we feel deeply. So we can connect to awe. I can connect to awe and the beauty of nature. I can really fall in love with a piece of music. I can really, you know, like, as you know, we both love our movies. I could talk about them all day, and I just feel I get tingles and adrenaline when I'm watching my action films. I'm lucky I get to feel things that deeply, but guess what? It works the other way. So, normal emotions, reactions to things can be devastating. And you don't know why. Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I getting affected by this? And rejections can be really, really hard as well because you feel it really intensely. Someone might say something like, "Oh my God, they hate me, or what have I done wrong?" And you feel like you're going to vomit everywhere, and you just really low mood, and you feel flat. So you're having to constantly work with your emotions. And I had that all the way through into that illness and nearly dying, and then coming out the other side, it will start to kick in again because I didn't know. I didn't know that my brain and body needed me to help it. But because I thought I just had anxiety or depression or something, maybe just take medication, I guess. But then you're using the wrong medication. That's not the right medication. You don't want to be taking things like that for an ADHD brain. It's not good for the brain that we have. So what really happened from the diagnosis, the most powerful thing is then you get to do research and discover like where you are on the spectrum, what things affect you. And that's what I did. I thought, okay, how can I meet my own needs here? What do I need? Do I need to only do things for 40 minutes? It's really important that I turn everything off and go into quiet. Or do I need to get outside and get my feet on the ground? What does my body need to help it regulate? What does my mind need to help it calm down and come into a mindful presence? So what the diagnosis does, it gives you permission to start helping yourself because you actually have some answers there that you can use, like a little menu of things that you can try. Whereas before, when you're not diagnosed, you're like, I don't know. Am I anxious? Am I this? Do I have trauma? I got PTSD. I don't understand why my body's doing this. And you feel lost. You feel worthless. You feel broken. So diagnosis for me made me go, oh my God, I'm not broken. It's a neurotype. That's so cool. Everyone has different neurotypes. This is mine. And it's been 10 times easier this year to live in this world. And I've got a lot of stress in my life. My partner's being unwell and some other things as well. I've coped with it so well, but I think it's because I understand myself better. So what I would say to round all that up is what diagnosis does is it gives you some truth that you can work with so you can actually start implementing self-care tailored to your very specific neurotype. And how cool, how empowering is that?
I think that's really great. I love you're always so good at being able to give like descriptions of things and explain things. And I love it so much is that it's a really good point is knowing what works for you. And I love that you brought up the medication piece too, is that sometimes we're really quick to just rule something, right? Like, oh, depression, oh, anxiety, right? Oh, take this medication, it'll help you. But like you said earlier, right? Is there certain like what our brain chemistry needs? Maybe we don't need more of that. We need more of this. And that's something I think a lot of people don't understand that, for example, a really rare condition, serotonin syndrome. So my husband had reached this little zone where he actually got diagnosed with serotonin syndrome, which can be life-threatening. So he had way too much serotonin building up in his body and he wasn't using it. So if you're concerned or confused or want to get clarification, I think it's important to seek out a proper diagnosis because, like you said, getting that tailored effect. I have someone close to me who has an ADHD diagnosis, and it's the only person that I know personally with an ADHD diagnosis that really, really, truly struggles, and I see how debilitating it is every day in their life. And I really hope that that person can get the proper medication and support that he needs to be able to live a life and be able to function. And it's like many things, we try out different hobbies and we try out different coping skills and self-care that works for us. But I love that once you get that diagnosis, like going into the research, what can help specifically for me on this scale at this point with this diagnosis. And people forget that we're all humans, we operate differently. So what works for one person might not work for us, but especially if you're on a scale, you might be on the opposite side of the scale for them. So whatever medication they're taking or whatever they're doing might not be appropriate for you. So I love that being able to dig in, where are you at? What works for other people who are similar where I'm at? And then how can I grow as a person to continue to take care of myself and take care of my family? Because I think that's something that a lot of times people forget is that when they're sick or they're unwell, we're really great at just like, well, I have others to take care of and I have other responsibilities. I'll deal with me later. I'll deal with me later. But taking the time to deal with self is actually going to set up to be a better caregiver and a better support for those other responsibilities like family. I know that's something that you do a lot of because you focus so much on the wellness, but it is hard also being a caregiver. I think, we've shared a little bit about that too, is having to move forward. And I believe that your partner, you two did an episode together as well on Indian Free. Is that right?
Yeah, we did. We were trying to do a short kind of like little mini series between us, but she got on well with fatigue issues, and we're still working through all of that. Could be an autistic burnout actually, which is for another talk for another day. But yeah, it's been really interesting for her because she was diagnosed a year before me, And that's why I was like, oh my God, like helping her with all that. I was like, Jesus Christ, I do that. I do that. I do that. That's very common in this community. Oh my God. Especially if our kids get diagnosed, you go to the assessment with them, Jesus Christ, that's what I do. And it's very hereditary, it tends to be passed through the gene pool, so to speak, and the wiring pool, I guess you could call it, for the brain. So there's that too. And you asked about community. I didn't actually mention that, as well as the honoring your truth and discovering how your brain works. But it's the most incredible community. We're all in this together, and a lot of the world just thinks we're lying, and that's really rough. But I've not had any in the whole year. It's just been so positive, and everyone's there for each other. It's really beautiful because we're coming out of this big, explosive piece of awareness right now around all this, and the community's just been absolutely gorgeous. I've got so many amazing friends now that are neurodivergent all across the world. And I'm good at that anyway. I had that with the previous podcast. That's how we're friends. But it's just been incredible to be around all the different people. And if we're talking about hope here, it's just like before that diagnosis, I thought, am I ever gonna all the things that I struggled with? I thought, am I ever going to get over this? I've tried everything to fix a lot of the stuff that I was struggling with. But now I've got to a place of compassionate letting go and say, what really matters here, really? Does that little habit really matter? Not really. Leave that. Does this matter? Does the label matter? Does it matter that I've got the actual ADHD label? Not really. It's how I interact with the world, isn't it? It's my experience of the world that matters, not words or labels. It's how I interact with this thing called life. That's all it is. And my body and mind reacts in a certain way. So how can I help it out? Because our body and mind doesn't know the difference between what's true and what's not true. It's a feedback loop. Your brain and body is reacting to the world in a certain way. A lot that's programmed in from your experiences and traumas and whatever. So it doesn't know the difference between what's right or what's real or not. You actually have to interact with it and say, hey, mind, I understand what you're doing. Let's use mindful awareness here to bring us into the present moment. Or our body is really like hyper vigilant and maybe in fight and flight. Okay, what do I do that really puts me in parasympathetic? What beautiful textures or sounds or pieces of music? What person, what animal, even if you need to use a bit of food, then do it. Just don't make it a habit. But what helps you get back to, parasympathetic. I think I feel a bit of joy coming into my system here, because what your fight and flight needs is for you to tell it that everything's okay, not start going, I have fight and flight. Let's do loads of research now and figure out how I can fix this in this moment. It's like, no, what is parasympathetic? Do the opposite. Tell the body a different piece of truth, because you're the only one right now that knows what's real or not real outside of you. Your body doesn't have the concept of sight, sound. Does that make sense? It's kind of like we have to interact. A lot of us don't. We just numb out in life, and we don't realize all the subconscious stuff that's happening underneath, and it's controlling our life completely until we bring in mindful awareness and compassion and self-awareness and go, I can be a witness of my life now, as well as also enjoy it at the same time and tend to my needs. But how can you tend to your needs if, number one, you don't have any self-awareness? You don't know what you need and what's going to compassionate act, and how to be present as well. What do I need to do right now in this present moment? So, yeah, I hope that was useful. But I love all this stuff. I could talk about stuff all day. I love it.
Yeah, it reminds me. I always say, like, we don't know the difference. So our bodies are meant to protect ourselves and safeguard. And I once heard someone say, negative is natural and positive is purposeful. So because that natural, like, we want to put up walls and protect ourselves all the time, it's also very stressful. But you'd said about like telling your brain, talking to your mind, right? And anything that we tell ourselves, like we don't know the difference. And I remember being in a webinar, and it wasn't related to behavioral health at all. It was a different topic, but I'm in this webinar and I remember this woman saying something, and I don't even remember how it got brought up. It was very awkward. Like in the moment, I was like, where did that kind of come from? But the woman said something along the lines of affirmations being bullshit. And I was like, what? And she was like, I think it's total bullshit. It doesn't make a difference, blah, blah, blah. And from that moment on, I was like, I don't think I can trust anything that comes out of this woman's mouth, because how are you saying that positive self-talk is bullshit? Like I just was completely thrown off by that. And again, it was came out of nowhere. It's not like somebody asked her a question about affirmations. It was very, very weird, but it definitely was off-putting because I think that's something that for people who have that mindset that, oh, it doesn't matter. It does. There's actual science and research that shows that it really truly does. There's cool science and research about focusing on gratitude and not saying that you're validating your circumstance, I think is important, but also focusing on those good things are important. So I love that you bring that up. It's just that positive self-talk and reassuring and reminding yourself and bringing it back to center and finding what works for you. I know, like one of my go-to things, I have a playlist. It's from one of my favorite movies. We never did our top 10 or top 10. We never did our top 8 movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
That was one of my goals because I'm a big movie soundtrack person, but it's a playlist from a movie soundtrack and I absolutely love it. And it is one thing that will completely just, it'll bring me down. It brings me to a place of calmness. What is something or maybe a few things that you do that you have found have really helped you in those moments of brain hyperactivity to be able to try and settle and bring you back down to that state of rest? There we go.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to add in, because I can't help myself with the science, but that when we're in fight and flight or dorsal vagal, so anyone doesn't know that, I use polyvagal terms about the nervous system. So the vagus nerve is a big part of how everything works, how it's sort of automatic and it sends signals looping from brain to body, body to brain. But if we're in fight and flight or dorsal, which is shut down, it's kind of like that's the feel of a depression, that kind of flatness, that intense sadness, dread. That's what a lot of dorsal in your nervous system feels like. It's all in your kind of stomach area. Anyway, all that to say, those two things, sympathetic and dorsal, good luck trying to learn anything in those states and retain information. Good luck in connecting when you're in those states, connecting deeply on a social level. Yeah, good luck with, controlling impulses. Basically, where we heal, we can't heal in those states, by the way, because your body dysregulated is pumping stress hormone into your system. Your digestion isn't going to work properly. Your brain is going to be filtering out positive stuff because it's trying to basically just focus on keeping you alive. Thinks there's a tiger there. There is no tiger. It's just a stressful situation that you're in. But all of that is to say is nothing in those states are going to get you to flourish and build a life that you want and heal and to learn and to connect and to build a passionate life, I guess, in many ways. However, you do need some sympathetic to, for example, to play sport. So if you have a gorgeous time playing tennis, you need some sympathetic energy, right? So just be clear there. My point is that the more time every day you can spend in your parasympathetic ventral vagal, as they call it, your rest and digest, the more time you can spend there on a daily basis, the more your body's going to slowly heal itself and it's going to slowly open opportunities for you. You're going to see more positive things around you. You're going to want to connect. You're going to want to talk. You find it easy to be present. So when I work with my clients, this is exactly what you're talking about. What is my list? What is my menu? What is my, whatever you want to call it? What's my ingredients that get me back to parasympathetic and ventral? And like I said earlier, for me, because I can list things, but for me, it's quiet. So if I need to try and schedule time where if I'm doing 40 minutes, say, editing your show or doing whatever else I'm doing, okay, 40 minutes, and then I've got my little buzzer, and then I need to turn everything off. Low lighting, turn off any sound, any visual distraction. It sounds weird, but I just sit there in the quiet. And it's so beautiful. I start to yawn and I kind of want to rub my head. It's like a somatic thing that I know is helping. So if I'm rubbing my head and massaging, it means I'm back online. I'm like tending to my body. It's really cool. I can't explain it. It's weird. It's like this instant reaction. So on one level, I need that. I need this quiet, non-sensory thing to get me back, get my brain calmer. But then sometimes, like you said, music for me, baby. So I put on a fun, housey disco track. And I feel like this buzz in my body. I feel like it's like some sort of, I guess it's like positive adrenaline, I guess, but it's like a little tingly feeling, which means I am joyful in that moment. I'm like, oh, I love this song so much. I'm present. I'm just with the song. It's such a good hack to get you present outside of obviously meditation and things. Um, so you're right about that. That gets me back into my parasympathetic. And then it's nature. So if I go to my allotment and I'm digging and I'm sorting out paths and putting up a little fence or something, I don't know, I'm just in heaven and I'm just back online and my whole life just disappears when I'm in the garden. I don't think about my flat or life or a job. So I think once you have your list and your ingredients, sometimes I'm not going to be in quiet, right? Because I'm so overstimulated. I need to move. ADHD is often need to move. Move your body. It's just full of stress hormone right now. Have a dance, go for a run. Movement is essential a lot of the time for ADHD brain specifically. So I find being in the garden, moving around is a big one too. And then it's sensory, Jess, to be honest. Like you can get these I'll show you here because if you watch on YouTube, you get like these magnet fidget toys. So, you can fiddle things. It brings your focus. It gets your focus just on these. And I love the heaviness of the magnet. Or it could be something soft, like those squishy toys you can get that technically are for kids, but they're great for adults. When you squeeze them, they're really nice material. That kind of softness. And my number one is my cat. 100% hands down. There is no mood that cat can't sort out. So I walk into the room, there he is, you good boy. And you go up to him, you give him a stroke and you play and you hug him. I just forget about everything. And I've got so much compassion for that little being that it reminds me about self-compassion at the same time. So that they're just different things that I use. And they're all very different depending on my state. But what do you need for that? Deep self-awareness, loving self-awareness. And that's all the work really, figuring out your cheat codes, I guess, is a good thing to call them, your cheat codes to get you back to parasympathetic. And I think that's hope, isn't it? It gave me so much hope that I can definitely have a better life and actually make better decisions and maybe grow more stuff that I want to do because I know how to regulate myself back to presence rather than fleeting around in the future or the past. So, yeah, loving self-awareness is the game changer, I think.
I love that. So many powerful things in that statement alone. And I love the idea of the menu, having the different things that you might need in different moments for different reasons. And I also know that you and I could talk forever and time always flies. And we used to meet up weekly to chat and now we're like voice messaging back and forth. But I definitely want to honor and respect your time that you've come on with all this energy and knowledge and all that you've gone through and all this different wisdom. I want to give you an opportunity to give us some final thoughts. Also, make sure that we tell people where to connect. There'll be links, of course, in the description, but best way to connect with you for all the different things that you have going on as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. Thank you for this. It's interesting, because I'm having to talk about all this neurodivergent stuff, so it's really, really powerful. It's a really important part of my life, so it's been really lovely to express this out in the world. And yeah, I'm looking forward to guesting on more shows and spreading the message really. And I just wanted to say, as an ADHD coach and just coach generally, it just breaks my heart that so many people are struggling, but they don't know why. I just, and where does that lead? And I just, any little nugget, like you, Jess, you do so much good work, any little nugget of anything can help people go, oh, and that's so powerful, isn't it? That's so hopeful. Just, oh my God, yeah, I can't, that resonated so much, and now I can do this. So I just wanted to honor that and just to really reiterate, if you can take some time just to see how loving you are to yourself with your self-awareness. Are you judging yourself? Oh, I do this. That is self-awareness. It's not very nice self-awareness though, is it? Oh God, I'm doing it again. It's like, no, I understand why I'm doing this. It kind of makes sense that I'm doing this because I'm struggling in this moment. That's cool. So I will keep going for a bit and then I'll sort it out later on today, or maybe actually right now, I think I know what I need to do. So loving self-awareness, everyone, just to make sure you check in with yourself and be really compassionate to yourself because you're doing your best. We all are, and our bodies and minds are running wild on us sometimes, and they're doing their best to cope in this crazy world. So just know that you're doing your best. And as far as just up behind the scenes, I got the podcast, ND and Free, so that's on all platforms. My business is ND and Free as well, ND and Free Coaching. So it's ndandfree.com where you can find out more about what I work with. So essentially my work, I know Jess probably would have said in the intro, so self-awareness, self-compassion, and presence work. That's kind of what I do. So it's a little bit different. I'm not just helping people figure out how to not procrastinate. It's much deeper than that. I want people to kind of fall in love with themselves for the first time after their diagnosis, or if you're waiting for a diagnosis, I'm here to help, or if you suspect that you are, you can check in with me as well. So on my social media, there's lots of little nuggets of information on there. But most of all, I just love people. I think they're fascinating. I love psychology and I love the body. So, yeah, just come check out the content and see what I'm exploring this week because I love to learn.
I love it. And that's honestly, for people, that's how Owen and I got connected, was through all the amazing information he was putting out on Instagram. I just thought, this is somebody who really is passionate, who really loves what he's doing and helping better people's lives. I've got to connect with him. And I'm so glad that we've stayed in contact and we've been on so many different adventures together. And I'm so appreciative of you coming on as a guest and being able to tell more of your story and raise more awareness about neurodivergency. And I'm sure our guests walked away with something positive that they can add to their lives. So thank you again.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate our friendship, and I encourage anybody that's listening right now to let people know about your amazing podcast, Jess, because there's some very powerful stories on here. So please, guys, tell friends, share it around, give some star ratings, leave some reviews, do all your promo for you. I'm heavily invested in this show. I edit it and I think it's really beautiful. So spread it around, guys, because if you know anybody with ADHD, not only will it help them, it will help Jess, it will help me. Everyone has a wonderful time. So thank you, Jess. And I look forward to meeting again on a show.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.